Diplomats from China and the United States will meet for the first round of a diplomatic and security dialogue on Wednesday. They hope to proceed with strategies that were discussed by U.S. President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping at their summit in Florida. CGTN's Nathan King is joining us from our newsroom with more. And Nathan, what can we expect?
Well, the Chinese team, Mike, can be headed up by Yang Jiechi, the state councillor. And basically, this diplomatic and strategic dialogue replaces the old cumbersome mechanism, which was called the Strategic and Economic Dialogue, which was considered a bit too big. The big question is whether this new streamlined and elevated talks will bring more competition and confrontation or cooperation between the two powers. It was one of the decisions made by the two leaders at the Mar-a-Lago summit in April to elevate the dialogue between the two countries and focus on the most important areas. This new diplomatic and strategic dialogue will first be hosted in Washington by U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and the U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis. China will be represented by State Councillor Yang Jiechi and Chief of Staff of the People's Liberation Army, General Fang Fenghui. The U.S. hosts say the DPRK's continued nuclear program and ballistic missile testing will be the priority, and have called on China to exert what Washington calls Beijing's unique influence over Pyongyang. Washington says China is key in a global effort.
I think we've seen some notable cooperation from China in this effort to create this kind of global echo chamber for getting the North Koreans to change their minds. Certainly they've cooperated in passing very tough UN sanctions regimes.
The death of the 22-year-old citizen Otto Warmbier after being held in the DPRK has stirred public anger in the US. And US President Donald Trump himself tweeted, "While I greatly appreciate the efforts of President Xi in China to help with North Korea, it has not worked out. At least I know China tried." China says the incident is unfortunate and is urging a resumption of long-stalled talks between the North, the US and regional partners.
Our position is consistent and very clear. We currently are maintaining constant communication with all sides and encouraging them to return to talks as soon as possible and work hard to advance consultations to promptly solve the nuclear issue on the Korean peninsula.
The US says it will also raise the issue of the South China Sea and will seek closer cooperation with China when it comes to handling terrorism and issues of cross-border crime and cyberspace. Yeah, and also, Mike, basically it gives the Chinese side a chance to work out where US policy is going. As you know, Trump administration have been in power for now, 5 months? But they've been giving conflicting signals, not just in Asia, but the rest of the world in terms of where their policies are going.
So, Nathan, can we expect anything concrete to come out of these meetings?
Obviously, everyone has a wish list, and a lot of these things are decided in advance. But I think for the Americans, obviously, DPRK is going to be very, very important, and they would like to see more pressure and more ideas from China in terms of how you get a change of opinion in Pyongyang when it comes to ballistic missiles. China, though, is really going to be pushing this dual-track approach, of course, which is a Wang Yi foreign minister approach, which is let's have a freeze on testing on all areas of the peninsula, both north and south, and move back to talks. The Americans don't seem to be ready there for that. But there are areas, for example, where they could cooperate. Terrorism, the Americans would like the Chinese to come into the anti-ISIL coalition. The Chinese would like, for example, more extradition of Chinese criminals that have fled justice in China. So there are lots of things they can work together on. But the fact these meetings are going ahead at this high level so soon in the presidency is also good news as well for the continuing relationship of the two biggest economies, of course.
All right, Nathan, thanks so much.